We will now go over lesson 3 in Ross, which is going to have to do with the schwa. The simple schwa is represented by two dots. You can see it more clearly on the screen here in the word for Solomon, which is Shlomo. Two little dots directly below the consonant is the schwa. Now the schwa can represent two different things. It can either be silent or it can be vocal. At the end of a closed syllable, the schwa will be silent. It simply marks the end of a closed syllable and has no sound whatsoever. On other occasions, the schwa is vocal. Now, Ross illustrates this with the English example, history or family, but the word family is often pronounced family, in which the I has disappeared entirely. And so that would be a schwa. When you pronounce it family instead of family, then you have killed the vowel, and that would be represented in Hebrew script by the symbol for schwa. But even the word family by itself, the I for family, is just a very, very, very short vowel sound. And so that too is essentially a vocal schwa, even when you pronounce it. Now, if you pronounce it family, if you had a very strong I vowel in there, well, that would not be a schwa. But family, the m sound, sound of family, that would be a schwa. And history, same thing. That O sound could get reduced to schwa. Or to give you just a different example, in French you have the name Michel, but in English you've killed the vowel and you pronounce it Michel. So Michel with a very strong I vowel becomes Michel with a schwa. A little bit of a sound, but not much. So how can we tell whether a schwa in Hebrew is going to be silent or whether it's going to be vocal? And here are some rules. If you have a schwa under the first letter of a word, then it's going to be vocal. And again, Shmuel is an example. You're kind of slurring together the sh sound, the sheen, and the m sound, so you get Shmuel, but there's just a little sound just to be able to slur it over, and that's your vocal schwa. Another rule has to do with final cough. Final cough, when it doesn't have any other vowel, is given a schwa. I think the real reason that they put a schwa in there is to distinguish a final cough from a final noon, which are, especially in handwriting, very similar in writing. And so just so that you know for sure that it's a cough, they put a schwa in there. But it's silent. And so here you have lach. There is no vowel after the cough, but it does automatically puts a schwa in if there's no other vowel with a final cough. A second rule has to do with when a schwa follows a long vowel. So here you have the word for judges, shofatim. Start off with an O vowel, sho, but if you have an O vowel, then the schwa is going to be vocalized. So there's just a little bit of a sound, shofatim, in that word, and that's how you would pronounce it. On the other hand, if it's following a short vowel, it's going to be silent. So Yisrael, there is no vocalization of the word of the Shavah under the scene there in the word for Israel, Yisrael. And again, that's because it's following a short vowel. Short vowel, unaccented close syllable is going to have a short vowel. And so this is just an indication that this is a closed syllable, and therefore the Shavah is silent. Third rule. When two Shavahs occur together under two consecutive letters within a word, the first one will be silent and the second one will be vocal. So you have the word for Carmelite, which is Carmeli. And so here you have a Shavah following a short vowel. Patah is a short vowel, so you have the Patah under the Kaf. And so that's a closed syllable. But then you're starting you draw a line there if you're doing syllable divisions. But that means the second Shavah is going to be vocalized. So that would have a little M and then Li. Carmeli, Carmeli, Carmelite. Someone from Carmel. So the summary that he gives on page 45 is that a Shavah is vocal in an open syllable at the start of a word, after a long vowel, after a silent Shavah, but it's going to be silent when it closes a syllable, that is, after a short vowel, or at the very end of a word. So that's the rules about silent Shavah and vocal Shavah. And I wouldn't bother memorizing the rules at this point. I think that as we go along, you'll start to recognize that, well, this needs to be silent, this needs to be vocal, although there are certain situations where it is unclear. Then you have compound Shavah. A compound Shavah has to do with the form that Shavah takes under the gutturals. The gutturals being Aleph, He, Chet, and Ayin. Under these letters which are sometimes called weak letters, under these weak letters, they won't take simple Shavah. Rather, they take a vowel that's somewhere halfway between a short vowel and a Shavah. So if you want to put a Shavah under one of those four letters, sometimes you'll get instead what is called a Hataf Patah. Half Patah, half Shavah. And if you look carefully here, you can see a little bitty Patah, and right next to it is a Shavah. The word for ground does that. The first letter is Adama, and so you have a little sound here under the word for ground. Adama. A little more of an A sound. The Shavah is more like a very, very, very short E sound. The Shavah by itself when it's vocalized. But Hatapatah will push it more in the A direction. But it's still kind of like a Shavah. English example, that would be America. You could make it a full vowel, America, first vowel of America. But then people tend to get lazy and shorten it. So United States of America. The America is your Hatapatah, really. A little bit of an A, but it's been reduced. And you can kill it all away and talk about the United States of America, where I killed the vowel entirely. United States of America. Say it quickly, you don't even notice it. But it's a very, very short vowel, short A. Whereas sometimes it'll show up as in the word for God, Elohim, with a what's called a Hataf Sagol, half Shavah. And so it will have a very, very short E sound. Again, it's a lot like the schwa itself. In fact, in transliteration, the little short E, that's exactly how you transliterate a regular schwa. But if it happens to be under an aleph or some other guttural, then you know it has to be the hataf type schwa rather than regular plain schwa. And then you have the hataf kamats. That would be the O vowel kamats, very, very short O. Again, half kamats, half schwa. Oni is the word for affliction. And then it's not oni with a full-fledged O vowel, but oni. It's a very, very, very short O that's there, and that's called a hataf kamats. Now, the nature of these hataf vowels is that they will always be vocal. Now, in terms of scientific transliteration of these terms, you can show, and here I go to the SBL Handbook of Style to show you this chart. The simple schwa is shown by an E with a little curvy over the top of it. That would be the short vocal schwa. But that's exactly the same symbol as the hataf sagol. So if you have a hataf sagol, you also get an E with a little short mark on top of it. The hataf patah, again half patah, half schwa, you get an A vowel, patah, with a little short mark over, a little curvy over it. And then the hataf kamats, that's the O vowel kamats. So you get an O but a little curvy over it, where if it were a regular kamats hatuf, that would be simply an O. But if it's a hataf kamats, that's an O with a little curvy on the top of it. And so that'll be the way that you can transliterate in a more scientific way the schwas. And this will only come into play in terms of transliteration when the schwa is vocal. If it's silent, there's no symbol. We will continue introducing this chapter in the next video.